I received my sister's wedding invitation on a Monday morning, while wiping down the kitchen after a rushed breakfast with my daughter. A cream-colored envelope with elegant gold lettering carefully written. Clarissa and Charles, a new chapter begins. I froze for a few seconds, soap suds still clinging to my hands. Ellie, my 8-year-old daughter, stood on her tiptoes to peek at the table. "Who's that, Mom?" "Aunt Clarissa," I replied softly. "She's getting married?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes. She's marrying a very wealthy man." Ellie blinked, then squealed with excitement. "Mom, can we go? I've never seen a real wedding before." I didn't answer right away. An unnamed, sharp emotion stirred inside me. Since my divorce, any interaction with my family had become clinical. No more evening phone calls. No holiday greetings. And Clarissa? She vanished from my life as if my divorce was contagious. I remember the last time we saw each other clearly. Clarissa stood at Mom's Christmas party in a dazzling red dress, diamond ring catching the light. She looked me up and down and raised an eyebrow. "You okay? I didn't think you'd show. Ellie's dress is cute. Very 2005. I gave a faint smile. Not out of sadness, just not sure how else to respond. After that, I stopped expecting kindness. I flipped the back of the wedding invite. The venue. A luxury seaside restaurant with a private garden, live orchestra, and over 200 guests. I swallowed hard. This wedding probably cost more than my annual income. At the bottom was a small line. "We hope you attend with your loved one." Dress code. Formal pastel tones. I let out a short laugh. Loved one? I had no one to bring. I'm a single mother, juggling 2 part-time jobs and a small government allowance. Every loved one left long ago. I considered not going. I didn't have the right dress. I couldn't afford a fancy gift. And most of all, I didn't want to be the punchline at a party hosted by someone who turned my broken marriage into a running family joke. But Ellie, she clung to the idea all week. "Mom, I drew a card for Aunt Clarissa." "Mom, I've never seen a real wedding dress before." "Mom, can I wear my hair like a princess?" I looked into her eyes. So bright. So full of hope. Untouched by the bitterness I carried. I couldn't say no to her, not when I'd spent so long shielding her from the coldness of our own blood. So I nodded. "We'll go." 3 days before the wedding, I pulled out the only decent dress I had, a simple light gray dress I bought 3 years ago on clearance. I carefully ironed it, stitched a worn hem, and freshened it with a light spritz of perfume. Ellie, on the other hand, was beaming. She had prepared for a week. A cream-colored dress with a slight twirl, second-hand shoes she polished daily, and a paper crown she made herself pinned to her hair. "I'm going to be the princess at the wedding," she twirled, dress flaring. I smiled. "You're Mommy's princess every day." The wedding day came. We arrived on time, standing before the grand gate adorned with white flowers. I held Ellie's hand tightly. "Are we okay, Mom?" I nodded. "We don't need to be dazzling, just kind." We stepped in, greeted by classical music and glances from women in designer dresses. None of them knew me, or if they did, they didn't bother to say hello. Clarissa emerged from behind a floral curtain. She looked stunning. A white mermaid gown, hair in a perfect bun, crimson lipstick flawless. She walked around greeting guests, kissing cheeks until her eyes landed on me. A flicker of surprise, then a half-smile formed. "You actually came. I didn't think you'd dare." I squeezed Ellie's hand. "You invited us. And Ellie wanted to be here." Clarissa glanced at the child, then turned to those around her. "This is my sister, everyone. She came, Elenino husband, no money, but with a cute little girl." "Right." Laughter echoed. My mother stood nearby and chuckled too. "At least she won't ruin the photos if she stands far enough." I stood frozen. My heart clenched. Ellie tucked my hand and looked up.
"Mom, I'm thirsty.
Can we go find water?" I nodded. She pulled me along, but as soon as we slipped behind a flower column, she stopped. "Mom," Ellie whispered, looking straight at me, "you stay here. I'll get the water and come back." I was surprised but thought she just wanted to be independent. I watched her run off, her small figure blending into the crowd. I had no idea that inside Ellie's bunny-shaped backpack was a video clip. and she was about to do something no one saw coming. The wedding reception was held in an elegant banquet hall, adorned with white roses and shimmering candlelight. Guests were escorted to their assigned seats. I looked around, searching for my name but didn't see it anywhere. My mother, dressed in lavender, walked past, glanced at me, then called over an attendant. "She'll sit at the extra table. The overflow seating. The overflow table. Near the kitchen. Near the restrooms." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It's fine. I didn't come here to compete. I came for my daughter." Ellie returned, holding 2 small bottles of water. "Mom, where's our table?" I knelt down beside her. "We're sitting over there, sweetie, just a temporary spot." She said nothing, but I saw her lips press tightly together. The ceremony began with the officiant's speech, followed by an introduction of the bride and groom. Charles, the groom, was tall, calm, and had the aura of a successful businessman with a warm smile. He held Clarissa's hand, his gaze full of affection. I thought to myself, perhaps, if not for the history between me and my sister, I might have been able to smile and offer her my blessing. But I was wrong. Clarissa stepped onto the stage to music, holding a microphone. She began to share stories about her love journey, about Charles, about the sacrifices she'd made. Laughter filled the room, applause thundered. Then suddenly she changed the subject. "And today I also want to thank someone special. My sister." I looked up. Ellie turned to me, her eyes lighting up for a brief second. Clarissa continued. "She came here today even though no one expected her to. She came alone, no husband, no partner, no money, just a poor little child. Thank you for showing me how far I've come to be nothing like you." Laughter burst out. My mother chuckled along, even clapping lightly. She tilted her head and whispered to the guest beside her. "She's always been dramatic." I felt like the blood in my body froze. My face burned. I couldn't move, not out of pride, but because Ellie was watching me. If I walked out now, I would be confirming to my daughter that her mother truly didn't matter. I just sat there, clutching the water bottle, gripping onto the one thing that still felt solid. Clarissa smiled, bowed, and stepped off the main stage, heading toward the area for the first dance. I turned to Ellie. She said nothing, but her eyes, calm and determined, worried me. Moments later, the lights dimmed. The orchestra began to play softly. Clarissa was getting ready to dance with Charles when the side lights flickered. A voice echoed over the mic. "Excuse me." Everyone turned. A little girl in a cream dress, wearing a bunny-shaped backpack, stood at the DJ table. It was Ellie. I shot up from my seat. "Ellie, what are you doing?" But she didn't look at me. She held the microphone with both hands, her eyes fixed on the stage. "I'm Ellie, the bride's niece. I'm sorry if this interrupts, but I brought a video. I think the groom should see it before the wedding continues." The entire room fell silent. Someone chuckled awkwardly. A guest muttered, "Kids and their games." But Ellie signaled to the audio tech. The man, initially hesitant, looked at her, then glanced at me. He must have decided it was best to go along. He nodded and cued the video. All eyes turned to the big screen. The footage play at it was grainy, taken from a tablet. In it, my mother and Clarissa were sitting in what looked like a bridal fitting room. Neither knew they were being recorded. Clarissa's voice rang out. "To be honest, I never thought I'd actually go through with this wedding. But Charles is so naive. 1 year and I can file for divorce, split the assets. It's all legal." My mother laughed. "As long as you play your part. Don't let the real you slip out. Men like him fall for the obedient type." Clarissa shrugged, twirling her bridal veil. "Once I get half the house and a few shares in the company, I'll disappear. Then I can go after someone younger or richer." My mother added, "Just don't be dumb like your sister, fall in love for real and suffer." They both laughed. The screen went black. No one spoke. Even the background music had stopped. I looked over at Charles. He said nothing, just looked at Clarissa, then at me, then at Ellie. He walked to the DJ table, removed the microphone, and said slowly, "Thank you. I need a few minutes alone." He turned back, removed his wedding ring, placed it on the table in the center of the hall, and walked straight out the door. Clarissa was frozen in place. My mother shouted, "Ellie, what have you done? Where did you learn this, you little brat? Ellie stood still. Her hands were shaking. But her voice was clear and steady. I learned it from all the times Mom cried. She never filmed when Dad lied. I just didn't want Uncle Charles to be tricked like she was. The room stirred with whispers. A few people got up and left. Those who remained stared at Clarissa as if they were seeing her for the first time. Clarissa collapsed onto the floor, her white dress spreading across the ground, her hands covering her face. No one came to comfort her. I walked over to Ellie, knelt down and hugged her tightly. She broke into tears. And so did I. No words were needed. The wedding had ended. Not because of an accident. Not because of a disagreement. But because an 8-year-old girl chose to tell the truth when every adult around her chose silence. After Charles walked out of the hall, leaving his ring and a heavy silence behind, Clarissa remained frozen. Her eyes stared blankly into the distance as if she were trying to wake up from a nightmare. I was still kneeling beside Ellie. She cried in my arms, soft sobs, not from guilt, but from being too small to carry the weight of truth. No one said a word. My mother pushed through the crowd, her face contorted not with pain but with rage. You're disgraceful," she hissed. "What kind of mother raises a child who humiliates her whole family like this?" I stood up, strangely calm. "Do you think Ellie humiliated you, or did you and Clarissa smear mud on your own faces?" I asked. She froze for a moment, then snapped. "Don't act all righteous. You've always been the family's disappointment. And now you're dragging your daughter into your mess." I held Ellie tighter. She was trembling, but she didn't look away. She stared directly at her grandmother, the same woman who once held her in her earliest years, and said softly, "I didn't want to ruin anything. I just wanted to tell the truth." People slowly began leaving the hall. Some quietly slipped outside. Others whispered to each other, their expressions filled with disappointment not toward me but toward Clarissa. A venue staff member approached, gently asking, "Ma'am, is there anything we can assist you with? The bride hasn't given any further instructions." Clarissa still didn't speak. She sat like a statue. The once pristine wedding dress now held the weight of public shame. In that moment I didn't feel triumphant, I felt sorrow. Clarissa was once a sweet little girl who loved posing for photos with me, pretending to be a bride in our mom's old dresses. I used to cheer for her when she performed in the living room. But somewhere along the way, as she grew up, she learned to step on others to shine. And today the spotlight had gone dark. Ellie and I left the hall in silence. Outside, the sky had turned dusky. Cars drove past the coastal road, and waves crashed softly against the shore, echoes of a wedding that had fallen apart. I opened the car door, helped Ellie take off her bunny backpack, and buckled her seatbelt. As I was about to get into the driver's seat, she reached out and held my hand. "Are you mad at me, Mom?" I paused. "Why would I be, Ellie?" "Because I showed the video. I didn't ask you first. I was scared you'd say don't do it." I turned, placing my hand on her cheek. "Ellie, I'm not mad at you. I'm proud of you. But I am sad that you had to be the one to say what every adult should have stopped long ago." She looked down. "I just didn't want Uncle Charles to be tricked. I know what it feels like to be left behind. I didn't want anyone to feel like you did." I swallowed hard. In that moment I realized my daughter, only 8 years old, understood something most adults never grasp in a lifetime. Back home I gave Ellie a warm bath, her usual glass of milk, and read her a bedtime story like always. Even though I knew she wouldn't sleep well, I kept the routine-y way of saying, "We're okay. I'm here." After she fell asleep, I sat alone in the living room. Messages poured into my phone like a flood. A relative. "I can't believe that was real." A friend of Clarissa's. "I remember when she used to be different." "I feel sorry for Charles." An unknown number. "You're brave. Your daughter is a hero." Then suddenly my phone rang. The caller, Charles. I hesitated, then answered. His voice was deep and a bit hoarse but not angry. "I'm not calling to blame anyone. I just wanted to say thank you." I stayed silent. He continued. "I loved Clarissa. But something always felt off. That video not only confirmed what I felt, but showed me what courage looks like from an 8-year-old girl." I didn't know what to say. He added, "Please tell Ellie I'm grateful." If she ever needs anything, a scholarship, a recommendation, have her reach out. I owe her a future without mistakes. I smiled softly. I'll tell her. Thank you, Charles. The next morning, the story was everywhere online. 8-year-old girl exposes wedding scam. Groom walks out after bride's niece plays shocking video. Single mom praised for raising brave daughter. I received interview requests from 3 local TV stations. A magazine wanted to write a feature titled, "The Mom Who Didn't Need a Fancy Dress to Stand Out." I declined them all. I didn't want my daughter to become a headline. She didn't do it for fame. She did it out of love and from the lesson she learned in her mother's tears. My mother texted 2 days later. "You've destroyed this family's name. Don't ever come back to this house." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Clarissa sent an email, long, carefully worded. "Congratulations. You win. I've lost everything. But I'll get back up. And you? You're still poor, still single, and now inspirational. Enjoy it." I read it and deleted it. Not out of anger but out of pity. Some people have everything but never understand what enough really means. That night, Ellie drew a picture. A bride in a white dress. Beside her, a woman in a gray dress, not dazzling but standing tall. And in the center, a little girl holding a microphone, smiling. "This is Mommy, me, and the truth," Ellie said. I smiled. The truth isn't always comfortable. But if we don't say it, it just keeps sleeping, right, Mommy? I pulled her into my arms. Yes. And you woke it up. A week after the broken wedding, life seemed to return to normal, but in truth, everything had changed. I still took Ellie to school every morning. Still made coffee, packed light lunches, and rushed off to my part-time job at a small bookstore in the mall. But the looks I received on the street, in the supermarket, at the playground were no longer the same. Some were warm and affectionate. Some held admiration, whispering, "That's her. The mother whose daughter stopped a whole wedding." But others watched me with scrutiny. She let her child do that? Is that even ethical? The media hadn't let go either. I had turned down over 20 interview requests. Journalists left messages like, "We want to honor Ellie as a symbol of young female empowerment. We'd love to hear your thoughts as an inspiring single mother. We're prepared to offer licensing fees to use your daughter's image in a campaign." I deleted them all. Because Ellie isn't a symbol. She's a child. And I'm her mother, not her publicist. As for Clarissa, she disappeared from social media. A mutual friend told me she had canceled her honeymoon, returned the wedding gifts, and sent personal apology messages to her closest friends, most of whom never replied. In the world of the successful and celebrated, a scandal like this is often enough to exile someone for good. My mother was different. She became aggressive. Emails, texts, even handwritten letters. Sometimes furious, sometimes pleading. One letter read, "I know I was wrong. But don't act like you're some saint. You let your kid ruin her sister's wedding. Playing the victim, are you?" I read it. I didn't respond. Not out of hatred. But because I no longer expected anything from people who chose power over love. One afternoon, while organizing shelves at the store, I noticed a well-dressed man standing hesitantly at the door. White shirt, gray tie, a small gift box in hand. "Are you Ellie's mother?" he asked. I nodded cautiously. "I'm Charles's cousin. I came on his behalf with this gift." I opened the box. Inside was a leather-bound notebook, the cover embossed in gold. "For the one who speaks the truth even when no one listens." On the first page, in Charles's neat handwriting, "Ellie, thank you for being brave when adults chose silence. If you keep writing, you'll do more than stop a wedding, you'll change the world. I believe in you. Charles." I clutched the notebook. Tears fell onto the page, still smelling of fresh leather. That night, I gave the notebook to Ellie. She read the words, then hugged it like a treasure. "Mom, can I use this for my journal?" "Of course. But I don't want to write about Aunt Clarissa." "You can write whatever you want," I said. "Even about a goldfish that loves cookies." Ellie burst into laughter. A few weeks later, a children's publisher reached out, not for an interview, but to invite Ellie to contribute a short story to a collection by brave young girls. Only if she wanted to. I asked Ellie. She thought about it all night. Then said, I want to write about a butterfly. It had a torn wing, so the bees laughed at it. But it still tried to fly. Because its mom once said, "You don't need perfect wings to be beautiful. You just need a heart that wants to fly." I held her close. And in that moment, I felt all the cracks in my heart begin to heal. Autumn arrived. The leaves turned gold. Ellie started a new school year. Her teacher, Miss Mariana, pulled me aside after parent-teacher night. "Did you know Ellie is the most respected student in class?" She smiled. I blinked. "Because she's smart?" "No," the teacher shook her head. "Because she listens. And she stands up for kids who get picked on." I walked out of the school with my heart blooming. Not because Ellie was popular, but because she chose what was right. One night Ellie asked, "Mom, if I get married someday, will you walk me down the aisle?" I choked up. "Of course. I'll stand by your side. Every step. Even if I don't have a dad to walk with me?" "You don't need a father to walk into your future," I said. "You need someone who believes in you. And I've never stopped believing in you, not for 1 minute." Ellie smiled, closed her eyes, and drifted to sleep peacefully. The silence in that wedding hall, the moment after Ellie played that video, was just the collapse of a ceremony. It was the end of an era where lies were cloaked in white gowns, roses, and reputation. And the beginning of a world where an 8-year-old girl could speak the truth. And no one could tell her to be quiet ever again. 6 weeks had passed since the day Ellie stepped onto that stage. Life slowed down like after a great storm, when the scattered leaves lie still on the ground, waiting for someone to sweep them up. I started receiving handwritten letters from women I had never met, from distant places like Montana, Vermont, and even Canada. Each envelope carried the same message. "I used to feel worthless for raising a child alone. Your story made me realize I'm not alone." A woman named Carla wrote, "My daughter is 12. She used to quietly accept being bullied. But after watching Ellie's video, she said, I want to be brave like her." I placed all the letters in a wooden box on my bookshelf. I called it my proof box, proof that courage can ripple outwards. As for Clarissa, she didn't message again. But one Saturday afternoon, I received an express parcel. Inside was a small card, written in her familiar handwriting. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I've started therapy. And I understand now. I hurt you, I hurt Ellie, and I hurt myself. If one day you're willing, I would like to apologize to Ellie in person." I didn't know how to feel. Sad? Relieved? I gave the card to Ellie. She read it, sat in silence for a long time. Then she folded it and placed it inside the proof box. "I'm not ready to meet her," she said. "But at least she's not pretending anymore." I smiled. Maybe that was a beginning, slow but honest. One day Ellie's teacher, Miss Mariana, invited me to the school's Family Week. Each student would share a piece of writing or artwork titled, "What Family Means to Me." I agreed, expecting Ellie to draw the usual, just the two of us. But when I walked into the classroom that day, I was stunned. Pinned to the board was a large drawing Ellie had made. She hadn't drawn a house. Not a mom. Not a dad. She'd drawn a towering tree with lush leaves and roots deep into the ground. And beneath it, written in careful script, "Family is where you get your roots to stand firm, and wings to fly." Mariana read Ellie's short speech aloud. "My mom doesn't have a wedding dress. She doesn't have a wedding ring. But she has strong hands that hold me when I'm scared. And she never asks me to stay quiet just because others don't like the truth. My family has only 2 people, but they're 2 people who are honest." I burst into tears. Not from pride, but because for the first time I knew for certain I had done something right. That night Ellie asked me, "Mom, if I ever mess up, will you still be on my side? Will you admit your mistake?" I asked. "Yes. But I'm scared of being hated." "I'll never hate you. I don't need you to be perfect, just to be honest." Ellie nodded, then ran to her room. A few minutes later, she came back holding the leather notebook Charles had given her. The first page was full, and now she was on the second. "I'm writing a new story." "About the butterfly?"
No.
"About a lamp." I blinked. "A lamp?" "Yeah. It's small, weak. But in the darkest room it shines the brightest. And you're the first lamp it ever saw." I hugged her tightly. My heart had never felt so light. At the end of the month, Ellie and I passed by a bridal shop. Through the glass, we saw a young bride trying on a dress glowing, arms wrapped around her mother. I paused. Ellie stopped too. "Did you ever want to be a bride?" she asked. I smiled. "Once. But now I don't need a white dress to feel complete." "Because you have me?" "Because I have myself." Ellie was quiet for a moment, then tugged my hand. "Mom, when I grow up, and if I get married, don't wear a white dress, okay?" "Why not?" "Because I want you to wear whatever you want as long as you smile like you are right now." A week later, I got a phone call from a woman named Laura, the director of an organization supporting single mothers. "I read the story about you and Ellie," she said. "We host a monthly storytelling night, where mothers share their journeys. You don't have to speak, just showing up might remind others they're not alone." I paused. "You don't need to be a speaker," she said. "You just need to be real." For the first time I said yes. At that gathering I didn't give a speech. I stood in a circle with more than 20 women of all colors, ages and backgrounds, and told them about the day I walked into my sister's wedding. No husband.
No fancy dress. No fame.
Just a child. And the truth. And I ended with this. I used to think I was a side character in someone else's story, but I realized I just needed to rewrite the script. And this time, I'm the main character with my daughter. Ellie stood at the back of the room nodding at me. Her eyes didn't just shine, they were steady. Like a sapling learning to root itself in the earth, rising toward the sun without needing anyone to shield it. 1 year after that broken wedding, Ellie and I walked into a bridal boutique not to pick out a wedding dress for me or my sister, but to choose a flower girl dress for Ellie. She had been invited to be the junior bridesmaid at Ms. Mariana's wedding, her teacher who had supported her ever since the Clarissa incident. The shop wasn't luxurious, but it was warm and full of light. Dresses hung along the racks, sparkling softly like dreams ironed flat. Ellie held my hand, her eyes shining as she gently touched each layer of soft tulle, each tiny bow. "Mom, if I ever get married, I want my dress to look like this," she said, pointing to a simple white dress with a V neckline, embroidered with tiny flowers along the hem. I smiled. "It's beautiful. But I still think soft yellow suits you better." "Then what will you wear?" I paused before replying. "Maybe silver gray. Your usual color." "Yeah, because I feel most like myself in it." Ellie giggled. "Will you walk me down the aisle?" I nodded, my throat tightening. "I'll be the first to stand beside you. And the last to leave once you're happy." She was quiet for a moment, then pulled me toward the large mirror. "Look, Mom." We stood together in front of Itone's single mother, with a few early gray hairs and weathered eyes, and one 8-year-old girl, twirling in a tiny bridesmaid's dress. "Do we look alike?" Ellie asked. I looked closely. "Yes, but there's one big difference." "What is it?" "It took me years to learn how to believe in myself. You started much earlier than I did." Ellie smiled, then whispered, "Because you were the first person who believed in me." Mariana's wedding took place in a small garden, under golden sunlight and gentle classical music. Ellie wore her dress, holding a basket of petals, walking with steady, confident steps. People looked at her with warmth. There were no whispers like last year. Because this time, Ellie wasn't the girl who ruined a wedding. She was a beautiful part of a heartfelt ceremony. As I watched the bride walk toward the groom, eyes glowing with trust and no hidden lies behind their smiles, I exhaled quietly. Maybe not all weddings are performances. Maybe real love is still being nurtured the right way. At the end of the reception, a middle-aged woman approached Ellie. "You must be Ellie." She nodded shyly. "I saw that video last year. You did something very brave." Ellie looked down, then smiled. "I just didn't want people to be lied to." The woman turned to me. "You're a wonderful mother." I replied, "I'm just a mother who's learning day by day." A week later, I took Ellie to the bookstore, a small treat after the successful wedding. While she was absorbed in the kids section, I got a message. From Clarissa. "I've started a new job, not as glamorous as before, but one where I don't have to pretend to be anyone else. I've also begun helping young women who felt pressure from their families. Maybe even in my mistakes, there's something to be learned." I read it several times.
No excuses. No blam.
Just truth. For the first time, I believed Clarissa was truly changing, not to be forgiven, but because she no longer wanted to keep wearing a glittering, empty dress. I didn't reply, but I opened the proof box and placed the message inside. That night, Ellie pulled out the leather notebook Charles had given her and flipped to the final page. "I'm done writing, Mom." "About the little lamp?"
No.
"This time it's about the dress." I was curious. "Which dress?" "The one a little girl was never invited to wear at her aunt's wedding." But she realized dresses don't define you. Kindness is what makes any dress beautiful. I teared up. Not because she wrote well, but because she understood more deeply than her age. The lessons I learned through tears, she learned through observation and an innate courage. That weekend, I stood before the mirror and tried on the silver dress I had worn at Clarissa's wedding. It still fit, but I didn't feel like the same woman. I no longer feared other people's stares. I no longer felt lacking just because I was raising a child alone. I wasn't wealthy. I didn't have a fancy house or a successful husband. But I had Ellie. I had a heart that had healed after the storm. And I had freedom, something many people never truly grasp. On Ellie's 9th birthday, she blew out her candles and made a wish. I wish lots of girls like me could be allowed to speak up. I looked at her. Then I made a wish of my own. I wish adults knew how to listen to girls like you. Our story didn't end with a fairy tale wedding or a dramatic reunion. It ended with a quiet night, just the two of us lying side by side, reading a book, giggling at a silly passage. And to Medhat is the happiest ending possible.